Topic for discussion in this session would be hypothyroidism. Before going into the hypothyroidism proper, we will discuss a little bit about the physiology of thyroid gland. Thyroid gland, as we all know, is a butterfly shaped gland that is in front of our neck that produces thyroxine. Thyroxine is T3 and T4 together, and T4 is vast majority. Some 80% will be T4 and some 10 or 20% will be T3. These two are bound to thyroglobulin that is within the thyroid follicle, and these T3 and T4 are synthesized by the thyroid follicle into the cavity of the follicle, where it gets bound to thyroglobulin and stays there stored. Now, if T3 and T4 are enough, T3 and T4 are stored in the thyroglobulin, as we said, and when there is enough of T3 and T4, there is a negative feedback. So it tells the anterior pituitary to stop secreting thyroid stimulating hormone. So what is this thyroid stimulating hormone? It is one of the 7 hormones of anterior pituitary, which will stimulate the thyroid follicle to secrete T3 and T4. And this in turn is stimulated by TRH from hypothalamus. TRH means thyrotropin releasing hormone, and this thyrotropin is actually the same as thyroid stimulating hormone. So it is popularly called TSH rather than thyrotropin. Now what happens to T3 and T4 that is secreted? T4 goes into the peripheral tissue, gets converted to T3, and then it becomes active. So then if T3 is the active component, then why should T4 be secreted more than T3? That is basically because T4 has got a longer half-life. T3 has got very short half-life. So it is of advantage for T4 to be secreted and to be converted to T3 at the site of action. And that is what is happening by deiodination. That is, one iodine is removed from T4 to make it triiodotyrosine. Thyroid TPO is for iodination of tyrosine in the thyroid gland, and inside the follicle is thyroglobulin, as I have already said, stores thyroxine. Then there is another thyroid hormone called reverse T3. What is it? It is an inactive T3. And why do you want inactive T3? Sometimes you may require to shut down thyroid gland for some time. For example, extreme sickness, extreme stress, for example, starvation diet for people who are doing extreme dieting, etc. Now coming to the hypothyroidism proper. It is because of the decrease in T4. Now we will not discuss T3 because we now know T4 will get converted to T3. So when I say thyroxine, it means both, but I may be saying T4 alone. So hypothyroidism or the decreased production could be either due to defect in the gland, then you call it primary, or there is reduced stimulation of the gland from pituitary or hypothalamus, that is TSH or TRH is decreased. Then you call it secondary hypothyroidism. Some people call TRH deficiency as tertiary hypothyroidism also. So to remove confusion, we will call these two together as central hypothyroidism, and the defect due to thyroid gland as primary hypothyroidism. So from now on, it will be primary hypothyroidism and central hypothyroidism. Both can be either congenital or acquired. Now we will discuss primary hypothyroidism, which means the defect is in the thyroid gland. It can be either inborn, that is congenital, or acquired after birth. So congenital means thyroid dysgenesis. That means the genesis of thyroid is disrupted. So you have aplasia, total absence of thyroid gland, hypoplasia, or ectopic thyroid gland. Because any gland or any organ that is remaining in an ectopic location function less adequately as compared to normal location. So that means these congenital hypothyroidism people will have no swelling at the neck, no goiter, because there is no thyroid gland at all. If at all there is a thyroid gland, it is hypoplastic. Now the second cause of congenital primary hypothyroidism would be defect in thyroid hormone synthesis. When there is a defect in thyroid hormone synthesis due to enzyme deficiency, the feedback signal to the pituitary is less of thyroid is being synthesized, so secrete more of TSH. So a lot of TSH gets secreted, extra stimulation of the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland enlarges. So you have a newborn with goiter. So that is the presentation of congenital enzyme deficiency in thyroxine synthesis. But this is very, very, very rare. So if it is a congenital primary hypothyroidism, we can take it for granted that it is due to dysplastic or dysgenetic gland, which means there is no goiter. And since maternal thyroxine gets transferred to fetus transplacentally, T4 gets transferred, baby will not have any features of hypothyroidism. So the only way to detect newborn hypothyroidism would be routine newborn screening for hypothyroidism. That is now being routinely done in all the countries, including our own state. Now coming to the acquired causes of primary hypothyroidism. World over, iodine deficiency is the commonest cause. Iodine deficiency endemic goiter is otherwise called cretins. The babies of endemic goiter or endemic iodine deficiency are called cretin. But the main cause for all developed countries and India, or at least Kerala, would be Hashimoto's thyroiditis, not iodine deficiency as the commonest cause. And in Hashimoto, what happens? There is an autoimmune mechanism. Body's own immune mechanism is acting against body's thyroid gland, and there is a lot of cellular infiltrate into the gland, so much so it enlarges. Other causes of hypothyroidism would be radioactive iodine, which destroys the thyroid gland. Massive doses of iodine, where the body immediately shut down the thyroxine production because there will be overproduction if a lot of iodide is getting incorporated into the thyroid gland. So that is the so-called Wolff-Chaikoff effect. Once the iodine is taken off, or the iodine excess is taken off, in 2-3 weeks they will recover normal. Then drugs having a lot of iodine content also depresses the thyroid gland production of T4. Then lithium, that gets uptaken by the thyroid gland, so iodine uptake gets reduced proportionately. So lithium also can produce hypothyroidism. Then of course thyroidectomy or irradiation of the thyroid gland destroys the gland, so there can be hypothyroidism. So in short, primary hypothyroidism congenital is almost always thyroid dysgenesis. Acquired in developed countries is almost always Hashimoto's. In underdeveloped countries it could be iodine deficiency. So that is the summary of this slide. Now the secondary or the central hypothyroidism again can be divided into congenital and acquired. Congenital means something wrong with the hypothalamus, so TRH secretion is not there, or something wrong with the pituitary. When it is a pituitary problem, I said the pituitary secretes almost 7 hormones. So it is very unlikely that it will be an isolated deficiency of TSH. So we must look for other deficiencies, especially ACTH. Now acquired central hypothyroidism, pituitary tumors, for example craniopharyngioma, infection, vascular, for example following delivery, massive blood loss may cause Sheehan syndrome. Then cranial irradiation or head trauma destroying the hormone secreting areas. Central hypothyroidism can be congenital or acquired. Congenital, if it is pituitary, it is generally multiple hormone involvement rather than TSH alone. So in addition to hypothyroidism, you may have cortisol deficiency as well, and other deficiencies also possible. And acquired is either chronic infection like tuberculosis or tumors, vascular irradiation, head trauma, etc. Now we must get the concept right regarding the goiter. Goiter is not synonymous with hypothyroidism. Goiter can be hypothyroid, euthyroid, that means normal thyroid, or hyperthyroid. So goiter means either of the three. So hypothyroid goiter means it could be iodine deficiency. When there is iodine deficiency, less of T3, T4 are synthesized. So there is a feedback signal to pituitary to produce more TSH. So more TSH comes and the gland hypertrophies. Iodine deficiency causes goiter. Then congenital enzyme deficiency. Again the same thing, not much of T4 is produced or T3 is produced. There is a feedback signal to produce more TSH. Then inflammation. A painful inflammation could be an acute infection of bacteria or virus, very unlikely both, or Hashimoto's, which is a painless swelling. So those are hypothyroidism and goiter together. Graves' disease is hyperthyroidism with goiter, where there is some immunoglobulin, thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin, that is continuously stimulating the thyroid gland, irrespective of whether TSH is there or not. And so the gland is forced to hypertrophy. So you have a goiter, you have hyperthyroidism. During puberty, especially in girls, during the rapid growth phase, there can be a goiter, the so-called puberty goiter, the colloid goiter. To meet the increased demand, the thyroid is overworking and hence it becomes a bit bigger. It's like you overwork in gym and get more muscular, something like that. The hormone amount is normal, so it is euthyroid but a little bit of goiter. That will go off in due course of time when the demand, extra demand is no longer there. That is after the pubertal growth is over. Now other causes of goiter could be like goitrogenic food like cassava, cabbage, goitrogenic drugs like lithium that we discussed in the last slide, nodular goiter in iodine deficiency. In iodine deficiency, as I said, there is a signal of low thyroxine to the pituitary. Pituitary secretes TSH. And this TSH stimulates the thyroid, and the growth of thyroid gland or the hyperplasia or hypertrophy of the thyroid gland need not be uniform. So there may be areas where it proliferates a little bit more, so it could become nodular. And obviously tumors, malignant and non-malignant tumors can produce nodules in goiter. Now what are the clinical signs of congenital hypothyroidism? As I said, most of the time congenital hypothyroidism will have no signs or symptoms. Why? Because T4 gets transferred transplacentally to the fetus. So as long as the mother is having normal thyroid, the baby is unlikely to have symptoms. Now if there are symptoms, what are they? The acronym is thyroid, THYROID. That is tone is poor, hypothermia and umbilical hernia, yellow color, that is prolonged neonatal jaundice, rough skin and face. Rough face, we do not call it rough face, we call it coarse face. Open fontanelle, intellectual retardation, developmental delay, especially the height. Then of course we can have constipation, delayed puberty when the child grows. What is cretinism? Cretinism is you have an endemic area of iodine deficiency. So people are all iodine deficient, mothers are iodine deficient. So the baby who is in utero do not get the T4 from mother. So what happens during the early development, say 8 weeks, 9 weeks itself, there is no thyroid to the baby. So what happens? The baby's brain development gets affected. So the baby may have intellectual retardation, deaf mutism and pyramidal signs because of damage in utero. So this is the so-called neurological type of cretin. That is, you have predominantly neurological damage. In utero, your brain is damaged. Suppose postnatal iodine supplementation is normal. These babies beyond newborn period grow normally. They grow normal in height and develop normal puberty at appropriate age. But whatever damage that is done in utero will not get corrected. So that is the most important thing in cretinism. Another type of cretinism, so-called myxedematous cretinism. So cretinism are two types, neurological and myxedematous. In both, intrauterine iodine deficiency leads to decreased or almost absent thyroxine transfer to baby. So baby is damaged in utero. In myxedematus, in addition to the neurological damage that we have discussed, they do have postnatal growth retardation and retardation of puberty in spite of iodine supplementation. That is, iodine cannot save this child. Why? Because in utero there was deficiency of iodine and the thyroid gland just shuts down and it fails to develop. So these babies do not have thyroid gland. So you do a ultrasound, there will not be any thyroid gland or an atrophied gland. This is in contrast to neurological cretin, where the thyroid gland is actively trying to produce thyroxine, but there is not much of thyroxine in the baby's body. So feedback impulse to the pituitary, lot of TSH comes and the gland enlarges, so the baby is born with goiter. So neurological cretin is a goitrous cretin, myxedematus cretin is a non-goitrous cretin. Now a myxedematus cretin, if we supplement iodine after birth, it will not catch up. Why? Because the gland is not developed at all. So how can it produce thyroxine? This is in contrast to neurological cretin, where the gland is ready to synthesize, only thing is raw material is not available. So once you give iodine, they will synthesize thyroxine and the postnatal growth will be normal. But whatever damage that is done intrauterine, both in neurological and myxedematus, will remain. That will not be corrected, whether you supplement iodine or thyroxine. Nowadays actually we supplement thyroxine, not iodine, because iodine they should get from diet, which is supplemented like iodide salt, etc. In congenital hypothyroidism, that is other than cretin, other than endemic cretinism, other than iodine deficiency, they will not grow normally when you supplement thyroxine postnatally. So that is the basic difference between cretinism and congenital hypothyroidism that we see. Congenital hypothyroidism in a non-iodine deficient mother, that baby will develop normally once you supplement thyroxine from birth onwards. Why? Intrauterine thyroxine requirement is taken care of by the mother's thyroxine transplacentally transferred as T4, and the baby is not having a developed thyroid gland, so naturally postnatally you will require supplementation with thyroxine. Now as far as adults or the grown-up child is concerned, acquired hypothyroidism, the three important features would be three M's: mentation, metabolic slowness and movement slowness. That will give you all the symptoms, like you do not feel like playing, you do not feel like studying, you feel sleepy, and your cognition actually comes down. So that is the mentation part. Metabolic means your heart rate comes down, you are cold intolerant because you do not produce enough heat by metabolism, and all the metabolic components are at low ebb. And movement, you do not feel like moving around. Even the intestinal movements are reduced so much, so you become constipated. Then some of the features of adolescent hypothyroidism would be, especially adults, carpal tunnel syndrome, where the median nerve gets compressed in the carpal tunnel, so much so the radial 3.5 fingers gets numbness, etc. Then the delayed relaxation of ankle jerk is supposed to be a characteristic sign, especially in a grown-up child. The ankle jerk for the hypothyroidism is done as shown in this picture. Then only you will get the delayed relaxation demonstrable. Now, decreased libido, hoarse voice, cold sensitivity that we said, oligo or amenorrhea, etc. Now, myxedema coma is a result of long-standing hypothyroidism in adults, not in child. Hypothyroid women more than 60 years of age, when challenged with a stress, for example infection, surgery, trauma, or extreme cold like winter. That is why myxedema coma is likely in winter months. See, nowadays we do not need coma to diagnose myxedema coma. An altered sensorium is enough because you should not actually wait for the coma to come. Heart and brain are affected predominantly, like you have bradycardia, you have decreased cardiac output, and you may go in for hypotension, and the brain you become cloudy in sensorium. So this is a very dangerous complication. The most important thing is support the circulation. You give a lot of IV fluid. Actually, you may require inotropes, but inotropes can produce arrhythmia. Sympathetic downregulation has already happened, so we may have to give more than usual inotrope, and that will produce arrhythmia. So it could be dangerous. So we have to use it cautiously. And this is the only situation where parenteral thyroxine is indicated. Rewarming actually must be done, but it also must be very slow, because rapid rewarming causing vasodilatation means the blood pressure may fall still further. And many a time we will not be able to know whether there is a cortisol deficiency also. Especially when the BP is down, there is an advantage of giving hydrocortisone also. Workup is easy. Serum, T4 and TSH. T3 optional. T3 is generally of help in hyperthyroidism and not really in hypothyroidism. That we will discuss in another session. Free T4 is unbound T4. That is T4 that is not bound to thyroxine binding globulin or albumin or other proteins. It is in proportion to the total T4. So the information that we get from total T4 is generally enough, except in a few special situations where you think binding proteins or the total protein is low. Anti-thyroglobulin antibody and anti-peroxidase antibody, the so-called TPO antibodies, they are indicated in Hashimoto's thyroiditis to pinpoint the autoimmune cause. If a nodule is palpable, we can do the ultrasound guided FNAC and see what sort of nodule it is. Imaging studies like ultrasound, thyroid scintigraphy, etc. can be done in selected cases. It is not necessary to be done in all cases. ECG may show bradycardia and low voltage. And bone age was universal in yesteryear. Absence of, for a newborn, absence of distal femur and proximal tibial epiphysis was supposed to be highly suspicious of hypothyroidism, because these things are generally radiologically demonstrable at birth in a normal term baby. And then in a grown-up child, beaking of the 12th thoracic or first or second lumbar vertebra is another finding that we may get. Sick euthyroid syndrome. It is called hypothyroidism because you find low level of T4 and possibly T3. But TSH level is normal. So that indicates that this thyroid function is altered and temporarily suspended physiologically to give the body time to recover from some serious infection or stress. So in such situations, instead of T3, the body may convert it to reverse T3. Now the treatment is with thyroxine. The usual dose in adult is 100 to 150 microgram per day. For a child, it will be like 3 to 5 microgram per kilogram per day. And for a newborn, it will be higher, like 10 to 15 microgram per kilogram per day. And it is ideally taken in empty stomach, because the absorption is best in empty stomach. But for a newborn or a small child, it is not practical. So you can give it along with milk. Of course, the absorption will be a little less, but that doesn't matter, because in newborn and a very small child, the dose that we are giving is much higher than the adult or the grown-up child. So the less absorption will be easily taken care of. Now the prognosis is for a congenital hypothyroidism detected and started treatment at birth will have a normal development. But a congenital hypothyroidism due to endemic iodine deficiency will not develop normally. Whatever damage that is done will persist. Now there is a newborn screening program where we uniformly look for TSH for all babies, so So if TSH is high, then we will retest for T4 also. So that will detect almost all hypothyroidism, because central hypothyroidism as a cause of neonatal hypothyroidism is extremely rare, and hence screening with TSH is good enough. Thank you. Hope this session was useful.